professional artists, we're going to start with an expert explanation of the purpose of bar drawing, the proper mindset you have to have going into it. Then I'm going to do a flawless presentation for all you beginner morons out there, showing you the process. I also cover when and how to use your measuring tools. This video is going to be completely beneficial, intellectual, professional. I'm not going to lie to you, I really don't like doing bar drawings, but their value cannot be understated, underestimated. They are incredibly valuable, unfortunately, for developing yourself. Technically, as an artist, it teaches you all the lessons that you need to know in regards to proportion, aesthetics, what's attractive, how to draw a line, which is in fact one of the reasons for using these places is teach artists exactly what is beautiful, what works, and what we should try to replicate in our own work. This isn't my favorite thing to do. We're just going to get into it. I'm going to show you my thought process on exactly how to go about a Bargue drawing. So without further ado, let us get started. First thing we want to do, we want to mark the top point, the bottom point. Now, we're going to go through, we're going to mark the top and the bottom point right here, and then we're going to get the width, because we want to make sure that it doesn't go off the freaking page. We're also training our eye to see height and width, all right, distances. Once you get these 4 points in 4 points, all right, once we get them in, take your time. I would say 5 or 10 minutes and just stare at them and make sure they're correct, constantly correct them, and constantly go back to these points throughout the course of the entire drawing, right? We got to keep on correcting. We have to keep on seeing the big picture. That is key with drawing. After we get this, we're going to go through and we're going to mark the top point here. I normally like starting around the top. If you're starting with a figure, it's best to like a standing figure, that's what this is training us for. I normally start around the feet area. Why? Because they're planted. Or if it's a sitting figure, it's start around their ass because it's not going to move as much, hopefully, right? So you start at the points that are grounded. But in this case, I don't mind starting up at the top here. Right, and so what we're going to do, we're going to get this point and this point. And so to get this, I'm not just going to go through and draw a line first. I'm going to go through and kind of tap my pencil and try to figure out where these points are and get the angle. And so when I have the muscle memory, I'm going to go through and wisp, if you will, the line on. And that's what we're going to do. Then from here, I'm going to go from this top point to here. Okay? There. And then I'm not just going to go down to here automatically. We're not going to go in a circle around here. Why? Like I said, this is preparing us for real life. And in real life, if we're drawing an arm, for example, and we start at the top point here, we're going to go around like this. Well, what happens with extremities, okay? They slightly move. So by the time we get around here, it's probably going to be in a different position. So we don't want to draw the contour per se. We want to draw the body part, right? So I'm going to draw this point to here, straight across to here, up to here, and get this point and see it all at once. Very basic. It's 2 lines essentially in 2 widths, right? 2 widths. So what we're going to do, we're going to go not this way, but we're going to go across here. And I'm just going to tap my pencil to get the width. And there's a lot of correcting going on with this. And look, I would just recommend blocking this in and then we can go through and make our corrections. Don't feel like you need to do everything perfect like I always do. Don't do that. Just relax. Put something in you can work with. All right, so from here, we're gonna take this and we're just gonna block it in. All right, so there's our line right there. And then from here, we're going to go down to this point, get the angle, and then mark it, all right? And then we have this point here, and sometimes I kind of mark these points. I don't necessarily need to draw all the way through at first. I'll kind of just mark it. I might mark a slightly longer point. The idea is we're not just seeing this piece, this piece, this piece. We're trying to see this piece with all this at once. So sometimes I'll be looking right here and my peripheral will be taking this into account, even though I'm drawing this side right here. Does that make sense? This diagram is extremely organized. I'm sure it does make sense. Okay, from here, I'm going to shoot up to here because we need to develop all this at once. So I'm going to tap my pencil, tap it, tap it, tap it, and we're going to get this line. There we go. Just one straight line. It's okay. It's okay that we have this space here. That's okay because later on, once we get this correct, we can go through and we can hatch this in. But this will only be correct if we have this outer line correct. And then from here, mark this. And then this part right here, normally what I like to do, I've split it here before and gone here 1, 2, which is fine, you can do that, but I recommend trying to do one solid line going across right here, all the way over, whoops, all the way over to there. Something like that. Granted, you might cut off a little bit, but that's okay. It actually comes down just a little bit anyway. And I normally have to kind of trim my lines up just a little bit. But anyway, this essentially right here is the basic block and sketch that we're looking for at its very simplest stage. Now, the advantage of drawing this way is that, again, we're doing this for full figure, right? And in full figure work, we essentially have to draw things very basic, very broad, and change them fast. If we spend all the time in the world doing these subtle details in the very beginning stage without having these big proportions correct, what happens? We have wasted our entire time with them when we have to move it. That's why it's important to just learn to simplify everything, break it down, and then we just need to move, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. 7 lines, that's all we need to fix, right, to move in this foot if it's wrong. And so at this stage, if you're a beginner, moron, I would spend probably at least, in this stage, I'm trying to give you a time limit, like 30 minutes to an hour, at least 30 minutes to an hour. I know that seems like a lot, but we need to slow ourselves down and stop being idiots with it. You know, I really think this is key, slowing ourselves down and just, you know, doing the work. All right, so without further ado, what we're going to do, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to demonstrate to you how indeed you can do this. Professional studio. Here I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to block this in. We have this creature in the back known as Rose. She is my assistant and she will help me if I need anything done, camera work, what have you. She is, in fact, my slave.
Lewis. Hey, Lewis. Hey, bitch.
Yeah? So what do we do? We mark the top, the bottom points, left and right, and then we're going to sit there and we're going to look at them and correct them for a while. I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do a basic block in, and then I'm going to use measuring tools to show you how accurate I am, number one, but also number two, how we use these tools. And before we get into that, a little quick excerpt, if you will, on how to measure. I oftentimes see people starting with the measurements. Fine, but not fine. What you want to do is train your eye to see it first, okay? And then use the tools afterwards to correct what you have done, right? That way you will train yourself in seeing these shapes and to keeping yourself at a basic blocking stage for a longer period of time. And it's going to help you grow in general and be more badass and sexy like me. One of the tools that I like to use is the Plumb Line right here. As we can see, we can take measurement points off it. This is a very high-tech contraction that I am still trying to reverse engineer to figure out how indeed this was constructed. Haven't had any luck yet, but I am working on it. So we can also take it and do what's called a plumb line here. This is a plumb line, but we can plumb line down. We can measure, say, a point. What point does this point go through this point on a figure or what have you? These are the things I use. You can also use a pencil, such as this, sharpened to a delicate tip, as we can see here. I have done some very intellectual videos on how to sharpen a pencil, which I will link or put up below if I don't forget. The first thing we do, we want to set the paper up right here. We have 1, we have 2, and we stand directly in between. And we want to be stepping back constantly and looking at the point. And then I'm going to come up and get the very end of the foot. We're just going to mark it in this manner, marking it. We're going to make sure the foot does not go off the paper, okay? We're going to try to get the width as best we can. Obviously, I do not make mistakes, so when I correct this, you will see, I will prove to you and the world how accurate I indeed am. And I have no doubt that in the background you will see an expression of a complete amazement on Rose's face. And in this manner, we're just going to constantly go through and mark these points in. You know, look, greatness isn't achieved in a day unless you're me. For most people, it takes a lot of time. All right? And Bargue drawings, unfortunately, I do say unfortunately because I'll be honest with you, I think they really suck to do. I don't like them. I, in fact, hate them. But they have a lot of benefits. They have values. They teach us how to simplify things. They teach us the process in how to develop, right? The drawing. You don't want to be a moron going there saying, I'm going to express myself. I'm expressing myself. And it comes out looking like a piece of shit. You don't want that. Right? You want to be able to express yourself, but this teaches us the language. And so, as you can tell, I'm constantly going back and forth, checking these points, and no doubt they are correct. Now, Lewis, do we go through and use the measuring tool at this point? No, we don't. If you're a beginner, I recommend spending probably at least 5 to 10 minutes on this section and really try to make sure that they're correct. And in doing so, you're going to practice your eye and your brain in seeing proportions. All right. I'm also trying to get everything level, right? This mark has to be totally horizontal to the mark there. It's just easier to correct that way. All right, so at this point, no pun intended, I'm going to do a light blocking. I'm going to start at the top of the foot here, and I'm going to go and start marking these points in. I'm doing what's called the pencil tap, all right? In doing so, I'm kind of trying to see the distance and the angle from point to point, developing a muscle memory, and then I'm going to go through and expertly, without messing up at all, put a genius level line in, all right? That no doubt made all of you jealous. All right, so from here, I'm going to shoot across because we're drawing body parts. We're not just drawing lines, we're drawing body parts. Okay, so I'm going to get the width, and so we're trying to see this whole thing at once, and I'm doing a very flawless, beautiful line that's totally not shaky. That's the camera shaking, it's not my hand. Okay, and then I'm just going to go through and clean up this line a little bit. Boom, shakalaka! And then this part right here, I'm just going to go through and kind of just do an expert line, and I'm going to cross through it a little bit, and then from here, let's mark the bottom of the foot, which is actually the sandal, all right? We're the top, so we'll just do one line going through like that. And then I'm gonna connect these pieces, and no doubt there's not gonna be any issues. Actually, this needs to drop a little bit, this here. So what did we learn? We have to continuously correct these lines. It's not enough just to put them in and say, okay, there we go, I put them in, that's all I have to do. That's not how this works. Continuously correct what we've done. This comes up some. Okay, let's do this. This seems good. And try to be as fluid with your marks as you can. Boom! Here, and then here. It does kind of go up a little bit, methinks, but do something like this. Right across. just straight across. It is kind of coming up some. It's kind of like it splits about right here and then goes up. But you know, we're just trying to do a very basic block. And if you can block this in simply, all right, you can see, it forces you to see the entire shape at once, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to simplify because this is essentially, we're working towards doing real life drawings, all right? And in real life, they obviously, unfortunately, do move for the very reason that the models are alive. They do move. Redraw this line here. Well, so we have to be able to also shift our drawings at the drop of a dime. If we want it, it's going to be easier to shift if we've kept it relatively simple, relatively basic. That is, that's the trick here. That's the trick. So we're doing something like this. That's actually, see what I'm doing? I'm constantly going back and forth, double checking this, and you know, hopefully getting a very solid, you know, block in that's accurate. Now, in a second, I'm going to prove how accurate I am by, in fact, this actually might come out just a little bit, by measuring this. That's when I measure, but why am I not measuring right now? Because I want to try to train my eye to see it without measuring. And then when I do measure, I want to see what needs to change before I actually change it. There we go. There we go. All right. And just to erase, I kind of just squish this eraser. You don't need a lava eraser, and you just squish it like a pancake and cut it in. So what we're going to do, we're going to check the height and we're going to check the width. And no doubt this is going to be something that definitely does not have to change. I have done everything right. And before I go through and correct it, I just want to say, normally if I was working on this by myself, I would spend probably about 5 or 10 more minutes, even at my expert level of expertise. I too would take time and I would correct this first, and it would train my mind to see these things. But for the sake of this video, for you simpletons out there, I am going to go ahead, use this plumb line, and prove to the world how accurate I am. And so this is how we do it. Ready? We'll see how accurate I am. 1, boo! Boom shakalaka! Now, I definitely did not go and redraw this after I found that the measurement was indeed incorrect. I didn't go through and edit this out or anything like that. This is completely, it was a completely accurate measurement of the drawing. And so that, my friends, is how we freaking do it. Sexiest exercise? No. Some might say Bargue drawings are silent killers. And to that I would say, don't be a pussy. I live stream my work on Twitch, and I also have a Discord. Professional artist, we're going to start with an explanation. Okay, ready? Go. Also cover when and how to use your measuring tools. This video is going to be completely beneficial. Then I'm going to do a flawless pencil demonstration for you beginner morons out there. Then I'm going to do a flawless pencil demonstration for you. I'm also going to cover when and how to use your measuring tools. This video is going to be completely intellectual, beneficial. This video is going to be completely beneficial, professional. Actually hit my balls.
It looks like you wrapped yourself.